The smell of gasoline hit me first, sharp and acrid, cutting through the humid Georgian night like a knife. I was sprawled on my couch, half asleep, the TV flickering some late-night true crime show, when the scent yanked me upright. My heart thudded, a dull panic blooming in my chest. I stumbled to the window, bare feet slapping against the hardwood. And there it was, me boat. My pride and joy. The second chance. Swallowed in flames. Orange tongues licked the sky, spitting embers onto my lawn. The crackle of burning fiberglass was deafening, a sickening roar that drowned out the crickets. And standing there, silhouetted against the inferno, was Karen Whitaker, president of the Willow Creek HOA. Her arms crossed, her face twisted in a smug, venomous smirk. I'd always known Karen was trouble. The kind of woman who'd send you a violation notice for a mailbox that was half an inch too tall, or for grass that dared grow a blade too long. But this was war. My boat wasn't just a thing, it was my escape. My therapy. The one place I could breathe after my wife left me 2 years ago, taking half my heart and most of my savings. I'd spent every weekend restoring that old fishing boat, sanding the hull until my hands bled, painting it a deep navy blue that shimmered under the sun. It was freedom, tethered to my backyard dock on the creek. And now it was ash, because Karen Whitaker decided I didn't belong in her neighborhood. I threw open the door, the heat slamming into me like a wall. "What the hell did you do?" I shouted, my voice raw, cracking like the fire itself. Karen didn't flinch. She stepped forward, her pearl earrings glinting in the firelight, her voice dripping with that fake sweet southern drawl. "You should have moved that eyesore when I told you. Jake, this is what happens when you don't follow the rules." Her words landed like a slap, but it was the glint in her eyes, cold, calculated, that made my blood run colder than the night air. I wanted to scream, to grab her by her perfectly pressed blouse and shake her until that smirk fell off her face. But I didn't. I stood there, fists clenched, the heat searing my skin, watching my dreams burn. The fire truck's wail cut through the night, red lights flashing as neighbors spilled onto their lawns, whispering, pointing. Karen melted into the crowd, her head high, like she hadn't just committed a felony. I could still smell the gasoline on the breeze, mixing with the sour tang of my own sweat. The next morning, the wreckage of the second chance sat like a corpse in my backyard, charred fiberglass and twisted metal. The hull cracked open like a broken eggshell. I ran my fingers over the remains, the soot smearing across my knuckles, and felt a sob catch in my throat. I didn't cry when my marriage fell apart, didn't cry when I lost my job at the mill. But this broke me. I sank to my knees, the grass damp under me, and let out a long, shuddering breath. That's when I noticed Ida glint in the wreckage, half buried under ash. A lighter. Not mine. Cheap. Plastic. The kind you'd buy at a gas station. I picked it up, my hands shaking, and something clicked. This wasn't just Karen's spite. This was evidence. I wasn't alone in hating Karen. Willow Creek was her kingdom, and she ruled it with an iron fist. Fines for unapproved paint colors, citations for kids' bikes left on driveways, even a rumor she'd tried to ban Mrs. Callahan's rose garden because it clashed with the community aesthetic. But no one stood up to her. Not until now. I took the lighter to the sheriff's office, my heart pounding like a war drum. Deputy Ruiz, a guy I'd known since high school, listened as I laid it all out. Karen's threats, her obsession with control, the way she'd been hounding me about the boat for months. She said it was an unsightly nuisance. I told him, mimicking her nasal tone, kept sending me letters, saying it lowered property values. Then last night, I saw her standing there, watching it burn. Ruiz leaned back in his chair, chewing on a toothpick, his eyes narrowing. "You sure it was her, Jake? That's a big accusation." I slid the lighter across his desk, still wrapped in a plastic bag. "Found this in the wreckage. You tell me." He didn't say much after that, just nodded and promised to look into it. But I could tell he believed me. There was a weight in his gaze, like he'd seen Karen's type before. Days passed, and the neighborhood buzzed with gossip. Karen, of course, played the victim. She cornered me at the mailbox one afternoon, Her perfume so strong it made my eyes water. "You're spreading lies, Jake," she hissed, her voice low but sharp enough to cut glass. "You think you can pin this on me? I'm the only thing keeping this place civilized." I stepped closer, my jaw tight, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. "Civilized people don't burn boats, Karen," I said, my voice steady despite the rage bubbling inside. "You're not as untouchable as you think." That's when the unexpected happened. Mrs. Callahan, the sweet old lady with the rose garden, came forward. I'd never talked to her much, just waved when I passed her house, her hands always buried in dirt, tending those roses like they were her kids. But she'd seen something the night of the fire. I couldn't sleep. She told me over coffee at her kitchen table, her voice trembling but firm. "I saw Karen sneaking through your backyard, Jake." She had a gas can. I didn't think much of it at first, thought maybe she was just being nosy. But then I heard the sirens. Her hands shook as she set her mug down, the clink of porcelain loud in the quiet room. I should have said something sooner. I was scared. Mrs. Callahan's testimony changed everything. She went to the sheriff with me, her frail frame wrapped in a cardigan, her eyes blazing with a courage I hadn't expected. The investigation picked up steam. They found security footage from a neighbor's camera, grainy but clear enough to show Karen's SUV parked near my house that night. They found traces of gasoline on her shoes, seized during a search warrant. And the lighter, it had her fingerprints. The puzzle pieces snapped together, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The HOA meeting was the turning point. The community center was packed, the air thick with tension and the faint smell of stale coffee. Karen stood at the podium, her usual poise cracking like thin ice. She tried to spin it, claiming the boat was a fire hazard and she was protecting the neighborhood. But the crowd wasn't buying it. Whispers turned to murmurs, then to outright shouts. "You burned his property." Someone yelled. "Step down." Another voice called. I stood in the back, my arms crossed, watching her empire crumble. Mrs. Callahan sat in the front row, her chin high, her roses still blooming in her yard despite Karen's threats. When the sheriff's deputy walked in, the room went silent. You could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights, the creak of chairs as people leaned forward. "Karen Whitaker," Ruiz said, his voice calm but unyielding. "You're under arrest for arson and criminal mischief." The handcuffs clicked, a sharp, satisfying sound, and Karen's face went white as a sheet. She didn't scream or cry, just stood there, stunned, as they let her out. The crowd erupted, some cheering, some gasping, but I just stood there, my chest tight with a mix of relief and exhaustion. The board suspended her that night, unanimously. They didn't have a choice. Half the neighborhood was ready to revolt. I didn't say much during the meeting. Didn't need to. The truth had done the talking for me. As I walked home, the air cool against my skin, I passed Mrs. Callahan's house. Her roses glowed under the streetlights, red and defiant, like they were mocking Karen's defeat. I smiled for the first time in weeks. The second chance was gone, and no amount of justice could bring it back. But as I stood by the creek, the water lapping softly against the dock, I realized something. Karen thought she could control me, break me, make me bend to her rules. She was wrong. I'd lost my boat, but I'd found something else, a fire of my own, one she couldn't touch. I'd rebuild, not just a boat, but a life. And this time, no one would tell me how to live it. The neighborhood felt different after that. Lighter, somehow. People started leaving their kids' bikes on the lawn again, painting their mailboxes whatever color they damn well pleased. Karen's trial is still pending, but the charges are heavy. Arson's no small thing in Georgia. Every time I see her name in the local paper, I think of that night, the flames, the smirk, and I think of Mrs. Callahan, her trembling hands and her quiet bravery. Proof that even the smallest voices can bring down a tyrant. Justice doesn't always come fast, but when it does, it burns brighter than any fire Karen could ever set.